And we can get started. Hello, Mensil. Nice to have you joining us again. So Nancy, just for you to know, these calls, I never know how many people will show up. Sometimes I've had as many as 11 or 12, and I've had as few as two. And then sometimes people pop on during the hour. But this is your time to ask me anything. And as it relates to food, no politics or business or anything like that, but it's just an easy, casual conversation. So I want to start with a question that somebody actually did send in to me. I want to read it so that I get it right. Linda wrote that she's sorry she will have to miss this monthly meeting. My question: I always stress as the holidays come up and there are spontaneous get-togethers. Everywhere you go, everyone is offering you food, drink, and sweets. I'm wondering if there is any way to visit someone for tea or find a way to politely say no, so I am not eating big meals or things I don't want in the afternoon and the evening. I'm trying to space myself between a little wiggle room and enjoyment and eating with abandon, which never works ever for me. Any words of wisdom would certainly help. I often think if I had phrases for food pushers, that would be great too. I plan to enjoy the holidays and indulge here and there, but in moderation. Not just because it is out and offered everywhere. Thank you so much. So, Linda, I'm glad you sent this to me this morning because I had some really good time to think about it. And the first thing that comes to mind, the first strategy that I would love for you and anybody else listening to employ would be to slow down, to take it slow, to practice deep breathing, in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. And I invite you to breathe as you accept the invitation, to breathe before showing up to the event, and to breathe while there. This will keep you grounded. It'll keep you connected to your body. And then you can do what I'm going to suggest next, which is set the intention that you are making a choice. Indulging need not be served with a dose of guilt when the choice that you make is from a place of empowerment and confidence. You're more powerful than the food on the plate. And that's something really important for all of us to remember. And if you are making plans to meet a friend for lunch, tea, or dinner, if you can, pick the place yourself so that you can look at the menu beforehand and be prepared when you get there. Another strategy that would be very helpful is not to restrict your meals during the day in an effort to make up for what you think you might eat later. It's going to backfire because you'll be hungry, which will lead you to disconnect from the intention that you're setting. That's really important. Don't restrict during the day in an effort to make up for what you think you might eat later. And what to say to food pushers? Well, what I often say is, this looks wonderful, but I won't feel as such if I indulge. Thank you so much. You can say that you're taking care this holiday season to space yourself. And I would be light about it. Don't let yourself feel judged. You can laugh at yourself, make a joke, and be sure that you don't make the person you're with feel that you are judging their choices. So when you do eat, savor the experience. Let go of any moral judgments, and as you slow down, give yourself permission to enjoy. You'll be better able that way to honor your satiety, honor your fullness, and you'll find that in this mindset of abundance, you know when you've had enough. So I hope that helps, Linda, and I wish you all the blessings of the season. And I'd love to hear from others on the call how they relate to any of that discussion. Anybody want to speak? Hello, Lisa. Menzel, do you have experience around holiday food pushers?
You know, it's so easy when you live in a world without holidays and without food.
Yeah,
It's so
but
easy,
for many people,
you know.
that's not the situation. And Menzel, you are in Israel, and I know things are difficult for you there. And I wish you peace
Oh,
and joy
I,
and
I,
serenity.
I had a terrible month. First of all, I gave up listening to webinars. During the entire
Good.
month, I listened to 2 or 3 webinars. That's it. And one of them taught people just go and eat and take your enzymes to be sure that you won't face some unpleasant results. So feel free, eat everything that is forbidden. Just take your enzymes or your probiotics or your, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
had,
but you know what you have to be careful of, and this is for everybody, that podcasts are wonderful. And there are some really brilliant people out there offering some great
yeah,
advice. However, it's not a one size fits all world. And when it comes to food and our individual biology and our individual biography, the two match up. And biography impacts biology, biology impacts biography. By biography, I mean our story. So, what's right for one person who's touting a hacking strategy nationally, internationally on a podcast, you've got to take heart that it might not work for you. So, that's really, really important to remember.
no,
Yeah, and I see that. I'm sorry. Yes, Mensa?
something interesting that I heard on a serious webinar, one of those where people are very hard-minded and so, they explained simply that the human body is not made up for absorbing dairy proteins. It's
Again,
not made up
that's
for that. Our
okay.
stomach is not made up. It's not individual. That there are some who can and some who can't. It's simply
Well,
the human body is not made up for that, and it's best to avoid it, especially
for,
cow milk, which is pasteurized.
okay. I just want to caution you that the intention of this call is not to talk about dietary theories and not to tout other things that you hear because you know my work is very individualized. I want to answer your questions and I want to hear what your individual concerns are. I don't want to review other people's podcasts that not everybody that are not appropriate for everybody. Can you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you struggle with dairy, so for you that might be the answer. But there are people that do okay with dairy.
I
And
was okay all my life and it was my basic food.
mm-hmm.
But
Okay, well,
suddenly I
our
started
bodies
to feel
change.
terrible. And for about 10 days, I almost did not eat anything except very little bread and tea and things like that.
Okay.
And
So
it
what's
was,
your question? What's your question, Menzel?
it looks to me that it helped to give it up entirely. So now
For some people, yes. Okay. For some people, yes. So is it best for you if your
and
body tells you that it doesn't like dairy? Then yes, for you, that's something you should avoid, cow's milk. But I don't buy into anybody telling everybody that there's a way to eat and a way not to eat when the person speaking has no idea of somebody's biology. So let's just leave it at that. But I want to go back to the original question that was asked about the holidays and the stress of having food pushed on us, drink pushed on us. Nancy wrote, she always offers to bring her own food to share. That's always easy. That's wonderful. And sometimes it's an occasion where that's not appropriate. It could be a corporate party. It could be anything else where or you're told no thank you. No thank you, we don't need anything. That is another happenstance. So the idea is just to go, not starving, set the intention, remember that it's not good food or bad food. It's just there are foods that are more beneficial to what your goals are for your well-being and your health.
I don't exactly understand why somebody should feel offended if one of the guests cannot eat specific foods, because simply they are not compatible with their diet or their health problems. Why this should offend anybody?
Okay, well, for a lot of people, food is love. Food represents nurturing, creativity, and for some people, it makes them feel better to have you indulge without they don't have the understanding that perhaps the food doesn't sit right with you or just doesn't make you feel good emotionally to eat it. So it's not so much that they get offended, but they don't want you to be offended. They're in their mind, their intention is to be generous and offering what they can. If somebody's offended, then it's really about what their problem is. And perhaps they're judging themselves and their relationship with food. I will say that there are so many people today that are on specific protocols for health reasons that there are plenty of people who are avoiding gluten, who are avoiding dairy, who are limiting refined sugar. And, I sometimes feel badly for a hostess who's prepared a meal without that understanding. So I always find for myself, when I am with people for the first time, I let them know that, yeah, I avoid gluten and I avoid refined sugar. So it sets the table, so to speak, and I get that out of the way. And if they ask me questions about it, I answer honestly. My body just doesn't feel right when I eat those foods. Therefore, I'm not restricting. I'm making an empowered and confident choice not to put into my body what won't sit well in my body. And that's really an important thing to think about, because we hear a lot about elimination diets, especially with the popularity of functional medicine coming into play. Eliminate this, eliminate that. In my community, this community, we don't talk about elimination diets. We work on connecting to the wisdom of our bodies, learning what feels best, what doesn't. We explore what our bodies are doing with the food we're eating. And from there, make that confident and empowered choice. Because why would we want to eat what makes us feel poorly? And we explore that. If it's hard to let go of a food, we explore that. Where is the reward in staying stuck in this behavior? What does the food mean to you? What messages did you receive at the table? What were the stories that you were told about food? What were the stories you were told about your body? How do you source your self-esteem? And during the holidays, with the abundance of food and drink and people and family and anything else that might trigger us, it's easy to get disconnected from the intention and just go along with everything. Yeah, I was always told to clean my plate, Nancy says, and it took decades to break this internal story. Yeah, Nancy, it was such a common message that so many of us were told. But what that message subtly tells you as a child is that you don't know enough to trust your own body because you have to clean your plate because mom cooked all day, children in China were starving, whatever the reasons were given to you. But your body is capable of telling you when you've had enough. And to tell a child that they have to eat past that point is a very dangerous message because they grow up feeling that they're not being heard and they're not being seen. And it might seem like a simple little issue, but it becomes a very big one because the relationship we have with ourselves is reflected in our relationship with everything else. And if we're told at an early age that we can't be trusted to know what our bodies need or want, it filters down, creates a ripple effect. Nancy, can I ask you to share how you managed to break that internal story? I'll read it from the chat. Lisa wrote also. I was raised the same way, but never did that with my children who are 30 and 28 now, even though most of my friends still use those old messages. Yeah, I know. Well, we tend to repeat, right? We tend to repeat the stories that were told to us. That's why I also say we need to have compassion for the message, because very often the messenger was told the same thing. So the belief system is carried on from generation to generation. But I think if more people understood the subtleness of that message, it wouldn't be used so often. Nancy says that I put my fork down as I eat and tell myself to eat mindfully. I now stop when I'm satisfied. I don't take a full plate either. Yeah. And knowing when you're satisfied is a really, really important step. And there's a difference between being satisfied and being full, because you could be full from eating a plate of broccoli, but maybe that didn't satisfy you. So it's really important to find pleasure and satisfaction in the food that you are choosing to eat as well. That's a really important point. As I said earlier in my answer to Linda's question, was when you eat, savor the experience. When you allow yourself to appreciate and acknowledge the taste, the temperature, the texture of the food, it's much easier to know when you've had enough because you're connected to your body. And that's what this is all about, connecting to the wisdom of your body, getting out of your head and into your body, letting go of the shoulds, and instead asking yourself, what should I be eating? Because that implies judgment. Asking, what could I be eating? Because that implies choice. You're in charge. You know what's best. And eating mindfully is also eating without distraction. And distraction doesn't always have to be a device, a book, a TV show. thoughts are distracting. So when we question what we're eating, we're in our heads. We're creating a stress response. When we're in that stress response, we're not digesting, we're not absorbing, we're not metabolizing. Again, it's a cascade of events that happen from head to toe. I had a teacher who always taught us that digestion starts up here in the head, not in the mouth. And the thoughts that we have about food and the food
Now
that we're
everything
eating.
is reversed. Now they say that the thoughts start in the gut.
No, actually, Menzel, actually, the gut sends more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the gut.
Yes, so everything starts in the gut.
Yes, in the body. Not, and I'm not talking about the brain, I'm talking about the mind. I'm talking about our thoughts. Thoughts are not facts. Beliefs are not facts. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how thoughts can distract us. Should I be eating this? Why are you eating this? You shouldn't be eating this. That keeps you in stress response, and that impacts digestion. And you're losing the pleasure from food. I always say there are 3 kinds of emotional eating. There's eating in response to an emotion. There's eating so as not to feel emotion. But then there's eating with emotion. You can have the healthiest relationship with food and still find yourself overeating just because something is so good. There's nothing wrong with that. An extra piece of birthday cake, an extra piece of mom's noodle pudding, whatever it might be. That's okay. When it's not okay when it starts a whole cascade of guilt and shame. I wonder how many of you have actually thought about who you are as eaters. What does that mean? It means why you eat, when you eat, and how you eat. And Nancy beautifully addressed that. She slows down, she puts her fork down as she eats with intention. That's how we eat. Why we eat, that's a different story. We eat for many different reasons if we're not eating for hunger. Cravings could be emotional. They could be actually caused by physical deficiencies. So we always need to explore that. And when we take a deep dive into who we are as eaters, the why, the how, and the when, the what has a funny way of taking care of itself. Because we can feel confident and we can understand our relationship with food. And we can understand the context within which our sometimes disordered behaviors begin, how they evolved. And, talk about disordered eating. The clinical definition is really an eating disordered behaviors to a lesser degree. So whether you're restricting, you're binging, you're purging, you're avoiding certain foods. But in the decades of work, almost 3 decades now, I've been doing this work, I've decided on my own definition of disordered eating. Disordered eating, for most of the people that I am privileged to work with, is basically misguided information that is driven, misguided behavior that is driven by misinformation. I'll say that again. Misguided behavior that is driven by misinformation. Following a diet that you see online, by following a diet that somebody told you they had great success with, but maybe your body is not designed the same way. Compare and despair. Lisa writes, totally agree, and I'm working very hard to address feelings and solutions rather than distract with disordered eating habits. It's not easy, Lisa. It's a process. It's definitely a process, because we want to feel our feelings. That's what makes us human. That's what separates us from the rest of the species around the world. We don't want to go through life robotic, but we need also to understand that we can separate how we take care of ourselves from needing to self-soothe when emotions get too uncomfortable. And they all will. They will. Nobody goes through life untouched. But the idea is to learn to self-soothe without being self-destructive. Yeah, fasting, fasting has its place. Um, for some, it works beautifully. But fasting for women is not always wise. Depends on where you are hormonally. It depends where you are when it comes to blood sugar stabilization, and also where you are in terms of your mindset when it comes to your relationship with food. In fact, when I talk about fasting with my clients, I talk about a feeding window and a non-feeding window. Flip the framing of it a little bit so that you're not coming from that mindset of scarcity. But I'm happy that you recognized that it wasn't right for you. I agree that we should all have hours through the night, 10, 12 hours of a non-feeding window so that our digestive system can reset and that we can really let our bodies rest. The digestive system of the body uses more energy than any other system in the body. So if we're eating through the night or eating late at night, our bodies don't get a chance to reset. So it's very healthy for the gut to give yourself that non-feeding window. And it's not that difficult to give yourself that 12-hour window.
I think they are applying those who recommend heavy fasting are applying the principle that if much is good, then more is better. So if you can, then fast for 16 hours. And if you can, then fast for 20 hours. That would be the best. And I don't think so. I started with 16 hours. And I didn't find it difficult, but I am underfed all the time. The problem is not the fasting. The problem is the content. So it's very easy to fast when you don't have anything to eat.
Well,
or you know that this is forbidden and that is not healthy and that is so and that is so. So I was trying to catch the ultimate truth, to know if it does it make any sense to struggle with the enzymes and with all this stuff. Now I gave up all the medicine I was taking, all of them, from the first to the last, already for a month. And I feel better than with all the vitamins and all that stuff.
Okay.
And started eating things that I didn't eat before because they are unhealthy. Eating chocolate is unhealthy.
I'm going to stop you right there. All right. Dark chocolate happens to be a very healthy food. It's loaded with minerals.
Not just dark, also milk chocolate, and also.
But you know what, Mensel, in these calls we don't talk about forbidden food, because food should not be forbidden. Food is a gift. We are designed as human beings to eat. Eating is an appetite for life. It's necessary for survival. It's not a luxury. Okay. There's no forbidden food. There are better choices for our individual well-being. And that's what this call is about, right? You've been on many of these calls, Menzel, and you and I are always discussing the fact that there's no one size fits all, and nobody has the right to tell you to eat this, don't eat that, unless they know what is going on inside your body and they have the training and the wisdom to properly guide you.
They do
Somebody
have,
who somebody
they
who you're
say
listening
that
to
specific foods, and most of the foods are unhealthy for 100% of the people. Without,
you know
they don't force me not to eat it. They just explain me that if I feel bad, that's because those foods that I am eating.
yeah, exactly, but that's what I'm saying. So why would you choose to eat something that makes you feel bad?
That's the problem. My brain is craving dairy, and my body doesn't feel it's good. But if I eat, for example, chocolate, then I feel wonderful. Both my brain and my body feels wonderful. And they
Okay, then
still
enjoy
say
your
that chocolate
chocolate.
is not healthy.
Then enjoy your chocolate and make sure you're getting fruits and vegetables and adequate protein and adequate healthy fats.
I was grown up with the theory that milk is the healthiest food in the world.
Yes,
It's
a
the
lot of
most
us were.
complex. It has both all types of nutrients that are required, not too much of any of it. So it's the most healthy. And now I hear that it's not made for the human body at all, because we don't have the 4-room stomach like a cow.
Okay, however, I'm going to again suggest that instead of listening to these so-called experts, you start listening to your body. That's my suggestion to you, Menzel. Your body is going to tell you what it can handle and what it can't, not some stranger on a podcast. I'd love to hear from Claire and Barb. Earlier in the hour, we were talking about holiday stressors when it comes to eating and food pushers. One of our participants who couldn't make it live sent in a question earlier about how to handle that, and we were talking about that. That's how we opened up the call. So I'd love to hear from you, ladies, if you have anything to add.
Hi, I could comment on something. This is
Hi,
Claire.
Claire.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, one of the things that I've learned over the years and I've used to some success and not always enough success, but is to remind myself that that holiday food doesn't I don't have to let it make it so that it's so special. I don't know if I'm repeating something that you've already discussed because I
No,
came
no,
in late.
that's a great point. That's a great
Yeah,
point.
yeah, and the thing, and especially where we are in this part of the world, pretty much anything that you can imagine that you would like, you can get it at any time of the year.
Yes.
Now, I mean, granted, if you're going to someone's home and they're cooking, for you and they're offering X, Y, and Z, it's like, well, okay, you want to, there's a little part of you that wants to just participate. But, just to remind myself, I remind myself that I can have this at any time. I don't have to eat it just because it's there at this moment. And therefore I want to eat in response to my hunger, not just because, well, it's a holiday, so let me just, the hell with it, I'll just eat everything and and worry about it tomorrow. And that seems to help me, to just remember that food is all kinds of food is available all year round, and even if I can't get that specific item, there's a million other things that I love that I could have at any time. therefore, it's really about responding appropriately to my body's messages, not to what's out there, what's on the buffet table or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exercising your power is what you're doing, right?
Right.
Too many of us give up our power to the food or something outside of ourselves,
Right.
or looking for the quick fix outside of ourselves when the answer is within us all the time.
Yeah.
And not only are you more powerful than the food on your plate, you're certainly more special than the food on the plate. And
Mhm.
and you, your body deserves to be honored that way. Your psyche deserves to be honored that way.
I love that word honor. I think that's really a great word to use about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So it's honoring your hunger, honoring your satiety,
Hmm.
honoring your fullness, certainly.
Hmm. For sure.
And what you said is also terrific strategy to realize that the food is available all the time. And then, of course, we talked about the food pushers, right? And how to respond. So,
Mhm.
how do you respond to somebody with you coming into with this fabulous intention and mindset? How would you respond to somebody who is saying, "Oh, come on, have another drink, have another piece of cake. You've got to try these cookies."
I'm really good with that. I've gotten enough practice with that I just say, everything was wonderful. Thank you so much, and
Mhm.
pretty much I leave it like that. And if I get pushed further, I say, well, I'm really full, so I'm happy to with what I had, and I'm satisfied. So thank you so much for your efforts and for all the
Mhm.
cooking, and next time we'll have something else, and we'll try some other foods, and I appreciate all your work.
That's
And
great.
that's
Yes,
that's really what they want. They want to know that they've been a good host or hostess, and they just want to know that you're feeling like you were taken care of by them. Maybe in that moment they want to feel like they did a good job. So
absolutely. The nurturer. Food is love for a
right,
lot of people.
right,
Unfortunately, some people use it in that capacity, but it ends up becoming destructive. But
right.
it starts out as a, maybe eating in an effort to self-soothe, eating to feel safe,
For sure.
coming
Yeah.
going back to childhood memories. I often tell my
Totally.
my
Yeah.
clients that our very first experience with feeling nurtured, with feeling seen, before we have any sense of self, is
Right.
about being fed. Right, first
Totally.
thing that happens when we come out of the birth canal is that
Right.
we're wrapped in warmth and we're fed. The brain remembers that. The brain remembers eat, feel better.
Right.
So
Hmm.
later on, when we start realizing that, hey, this life maybe needs to be navigated a little bit differently,
Yes. Hmm.
there's safety in the food.
Right. Right. And there's there's so much, everybody has their own memories, their own experiences, and
Hmm.
when you get together with people, all of their stuff is happening along with all your history, and
Right.
sometimes they collide. And but you have to stand up for yourself, but you can do it in a nice way, and still be appreciative of the I would say that 99% of the time that the intent is purely positive. Once in a while you get people who are like a little obnoxious about it, and they want to comment, oh, you lost a lot of weight, why don't you
Yeah.
eat something, or things like that, and it's like, no, you got the wrong
I know.
party. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to let that go over your head, right? We
Right,
don't
right.
talk about diets and we don't talk about politics.
And
Um,
right, right.
yeah, and Claire, I have to thank you. Are you the Claire that alerted me to the fact that I had the wrong date on the email?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Thank you so much. As
You're
many
welcome.
times as I proofread, I thank you, and the community thanks you very much. I
Okay.
wanted to
Yeah, I was
just put,
looking at it, and by chance I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, which I didn't go to because I got this horrible cold,
oh,
but I was hoping that it wouldn't conflict because I did want to get on here, and even then I managed not to get on till late. But Yes, I saw that and I said, wait a minute, something's not adding up.
I'm very grateful. Thank you so very
No,
much. It
no
would have been a
problem.
disaster.
I am I mean, as you can probably tell, I am a very detail-oriented person.
That's okay. As I am, I guess I just messed up.
I'm sure that you are. Most people who have a professional life have to be, because otherwise you don't have one. You don't have a
That's
profession.
that's very true. But
No.
thank you again. I want to
Yeah.
go to Barb's question. She wrote in the chat that she's thinking about trying a keto diet. There's been a lot of research about preventing dementia, and keto diet helps. Okay, Barb, what helps preventing dementia is the healthy fat. Our brains are made up of 65 to 75% fat, and actually cholesterol, saturated fat, and the other part is glucose. So it's the fat that helps. If somebody has a traumatic brain injury, one of the best treatments for that, intensive protocol when the injury first happens and they're healing is loading up exponentially on omegas or fish oils. So yes, fat is very important for the brain. The keto diet. The keto diet needs to be done individually. Some people do great on it. A lot of women don't because of estrogen. Estrogen is stored in fat cells. And it's also very important to make sure that your detox pathways are clear and that you're able to digest and process all that fat. But what I started to say about keto diets needing to be individualized. Some people go into ketosis. That's when you're burning fat for energy rather than carbohydrate for energy. Some people go into ketosis at 55% fat. Some people go into ketosis at 75% fat. So the key for brain healthy diet, really, if that's what you're asking about, is not so much keto, but it's making sure that you're eating an abundance of healthy fats, food that is real food, not products disguised as food, minimal refined sugar. A keto diet is very low carbohydrate. But the other thing, as I said, our bodies are not only made of fat, they're made of carbohydrate. We need that carbohydrate to become glucose to feed our brains as well. And for many people who heavily restrict carbohydrate, they become carbohydrate deficient and they start craving carbohydrates. And trust me when I tell you that the carbohydrates that you will reach for when you are carb deficient will not be the healthiest choices because the brain wants instant gratification and instant satisfaction. So what are the fats that I would consider to be healthy other than olive oil? Avocado oil, fatty fish, wild salmon, grass-fed beef, pastured eggs, and eating the egg yolks. These are all examples of healthy fats. Nuts, of course. And depending on where you are on the weight spectrum and how you feel about your weight, we can adjust the quantities, but it's the quality of the food that you're eating, the quality of the fats, the quality of the protein, the quality of the carbohydrate. And carbohydrates are something that, again, very bio-individual. Some people do better with less, some people do better with more. Same with fat. Some people do better with less, some people do better with more, and protein too. But remember that protein and fat are macronutrients, as is carbohydrate, essential nutrients. We need them in order to survive. And very often the carbohydrate also is the source of fiber, which is very important. So a lot of people on keto diets suffer from constipation because they're on low fiber diets. You have minerals, you have your B vitamins, and in your in your complex carbohydrates. Fruits give you fructose, simple sugars, also fiber. Vitamins are important. So you can eat low sugar fruits, smart carbohydrates, healthy fats, And if the quality of your food is what you need, you'll be in good shape. I hope that answers your question. I also want to say another thing about keto diet. The keto diet originally came into being to help epileptic patients. And it's also very, very popular for people with Parkinson's. So these are all afflictions that affect the brain. Seizure disorders also. Keto diets are prescribed for people with seizure disorders. So it really started out as a therapeutic protocol. And for some reason, it became a very big part of diet culture. Yes, absolutely. Do your puzzles. Play Wordle every day. Do crossword puzzles. Make yourself think. Learn something new. Learn a new skill. Keep yourself stimulated. It's not all about food. It's about how we live our lives. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you're well hydrated. Make sure you're managing your stress well. Make sure you surround yourself with people, places, and things that really nourish you. Yes, puzzles are fun. I don't know about any of you, but I've been playing Wordle every day and I love it. And there's a new game called Connections that's really challenging. Sudoku, oh, good for you. I'm horrible with numbers. Numbers to me are like Chinese. Don't do well. But yeah, those are the things that are going to keep your brain going. Don't spend too much time on your devices, causes the neurons to overfire in the brain. And sleep, sleep, sleep. Sleep is really important. Jeopardy nightly. Yeah, absolutely. So everybody on the call happy with their plans for the holiday? Comfortable with your plans for the holiday? Claire, you seem like you have it under control.
Well, I don't consider it control. I consider it, like you saying,
Choice.
it's
Choice.
yeah, it's really it is very much about, paying attention to what my body's telling me and not ignoring it. After, a zillion years of diet culture telling me what to eat, what not to eat, when to
Right.
eat, how much to eat, all of those rules and regulations,
Mm-hmm.
I've rejected all of them at this point. And but it is amazing how ubiquitous it is, and also, the judgments about body size. If you're not the cultural norm body size, it's hard to live in this world and not feel somehow, like you're being thought of as less than because you don't fit that model. And I still deal with that because I'm not, quote unquote, the standard weight, whatever, or whatever, however you want to call it. And so that's still a challenge. I'm still working on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel good about the fact that I know that nobody out there has any magic answer for me. The magic answer is definitely from within. And it's not magic. It's just, it's your body is telling you, like you said before, you're getting signals all the time about what you need, when you need it, how all of those
Mm-hmm.
messages. And if you learn how to respect yourself, you can pay attention to that. And every so often I'll be like, I don't care, I'm eating a
Mm-hmm.
cookie, and sometimes that's just fine too. That's just
Oh,
fine.
it's always fun.
Well, what I
It's
mean is,
always fun.
well,
It's what
even if I'm not hungry, I'm saying I try to even if I have a cookie or a piece of cake or whatever it is,
Mhm.
I try to coincide that with my hunger when I can.
Of
And,
course.
but
It's the
sometimes,
intention.
sometimes I've already eaten something and I'm not hungry, but I still want a sweet or something like
Hmm.
that. And I just say, you
Hmm.
know what, it's okay. And
Yeah, it is okay.
yeah, go
It's
ahead.
when you lose yourself to the box of cookies
Right.
and then you feel horribly guilty and shamed about it,
Right.
that that's not okay.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
as I,
the aftermath, I think, is even worse than what you did. It's like if you could, even if you did have a box, which I don't anymore, but
Mhm.
even if I did, and there were times when
Mhm.
I did, I think when I gave up beating myself up about it, I was in much better shape to say the next time I'm gonna just try to wait for my hunger and
Mhm.
respond appropriately. But if I was busy beating myself up about how awful that was, and oh my God, and my weight and my this and my that,
Mhm.
that's really what made things so much worse. That
Yes,
was my experience anyway.
no question. You're 100% right. And the symptoms that our bodies, symptoms that show up are really messages that our bodies are sending us that something is screaming for attention.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
just have to slow down and quiet the noise enough to listen.
Right. Right. And sometimes, it's hard. It's emotions get in the way. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that run interference, and that's so it's not always easy, but if you continue to work on paying attention, I think it gets better and better. I've been very happy with the fact that for me that's been the case.
Well, good for you. Always acknowledging what it is that you're really hungry for.
Hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes you need that cookie, and that's okay, as long as you eat it with love
Right.
and let yourself experience it. Let
Right.
yourself taste the deliciousness of the cookie. Don't
Right.
scarf it down because it's
Right.
forbidden.
Right. Back in the day, that was my experience back in the day. I would buy a bunch of food that was quote unquote bad food
Mhm.
and binge, and then and then it was like, well, I got to get rid of it, so I might as well eat
Right.
it. I haven't done that, and thank God I haven't done that in many years. And I feel
Oh.
very badly for anybody that has that experience. Really,
Mhm.
I hope that they find this other way because it's so important not to live that life because it's such a misery to feel like you're consumed and consuming and consumed, by that.
It's so true. And for many people, unfortunately, it's hard to
Mhm.
connect to their bodies. There's a reason why they're disconnected.
Yeah.
And that's where the real work is,
Hmm. For
right?
sure.
You know, why am I turning to the food? What is the food doing for me instead of thinking about what it's doing to me?
Right.
You sound like a very wise woman. You know, before we wrap up, I want to address Barb's question about the comment that she's still trying to find a salad to fix. That's interesting as well as healthy. I love salads that have all different textures and flavors. So I will cut up some seasonal fruit and put it in the salad, a pear or an apple this time of year. Um, I might throw in a handful of walnuts. I will, if you can handle feta cheese or goat cheese, I would throw that in, but make it interesting. Lots of different textures. I happen to love very soft, sweet lettuce, like butter lettuce. Um, I like seedless cucumbers. I will take grape tomatoes and cut them in half. So you can
Hmm.
make salads really, really interesting. And you can find so many vegetables today that are already pre-chopped that it really makes it easy. You could roast some butternut squash this time of year and throw it into a salad with a
Mm.
beautiful Honeycrisp apple and call it a day.
Yeah, my husband, he turned primarily vegan, or actually plant-based. He
Hmm.
doesn't like it when I say vegan. He says plant-based, plant-based. I'm like, all right, plant-based. But anyway, but he does salads, and I benefit from that when he does it because I'm a
Hmm.
little lazy to do all that work. but he
Right.
complains bitterly because it takes him over an hour to do a salad. And, he makes, he does several servings at once, which at least he doesn't have to do it every day because he eats a lot of
Right.
salad. But
Yeah.
but it is, you have to put in the effort. You do have to make some effort if you want, unless you're unless you have untold riches where you could just, buy everything from the restaurant or whatever, which, we're not in that situation. We cook at home, a lot, and but you can do it. You do have to put in a little more effort than to make it right.
But like anything else that's worth it, right?
Right.
If you're in school and you're doing a project, or you're at work and you have to create a presentation, you have
Right.
to put effort into it. And
Right.
what the sad part is that so many of us, particularly women, don't put that level of effort and love into ourselves. We
Hmm.
give it away, or we look for someone to fix it for us. Again, looking outside of ourselves. But you're not going to execute that project or that presentation successfully unless you have all the parts.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's great. Really wonderful. Well, I wish you all a wonderful holiday season, all the blessings of the season, whether you celebrate Hanukkah or Christmas. Just enjoy, and don't, whatever you do, fall into the trap of New Year, New You, because there is nothing wrong with you as you are now. You are enough, and you just have to find it.
Right. I agree.
And I wish you all well, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And Claire, again, thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate it. Barb
Thank you.
Menzel,
Very
be
welcome.
well.
Thanks
I'll see
a
you soon.
lot. Enjoy
Bye-bye.
a
Bye-bye.
happy
Bye-bye.
season.
Bye-bye.
Bye.